You guys have been asking me to cover the My Little Pony's cookie virus created by Anxiety Monster on TikTok for a while now. And I have to admit, this story was actually really well done, but very sad. And for those of you that may not be aware, this infection AU is based on the My Little Pony episode called 28 Pranks Later. And in that episode, we actually see Rainbow Dash is playing a bunch of pranks on the other ponies until they eventually decide to give her a taste of her own medicine. And we see this when Rainbow purchases a bunch of these prank cookies that are supposed to turn the muzzles of these ponies rainbow. With the help of Pinkie Pie, the whole town actually starts to act like zombies, giving the impressions that there was something in the cookies that made them change, only to reveal at the end that it was all a prank. But this AU actually shows us a reality where there actually was something in those cookies that turns the ponies into zombies. And since the name 28 Pranks Later is based on the horror movie 28 Days Later, we can assume that the ingredients gives off similar effects as the rage virus. But now that you know what this AU is based on, let's go ahead and see how the story actually unfolds. Now, the story starts off by showing us a journal entry that showcases the stages of the infection, with Twilight as the first example. And in this stage, while the ponies are very hungry, they still have some of their sanity. And at this point, the only thing that they crave are the cookies that infected them. We also learn that the rainbow muzzle is one of the first outward signs of the infection. The ponies will either have a big smile or a huge frown, which will be important later. And at this stage, they are also starting to go blind. Now, stage 2 is where things start to get really bad. While the ponies are not completely insane yet, their hunger is so strong that they will chase down anyone or anything and start to feast on it. And they're doing this just for the off chance that the victim may have just eaten some cookies and their stomach hasn't fully digested them yet. So yes, you heard that right. They're hunting people down so that they can eat cookies out of their stomach guts. And interestingly enough, this is a stage where like their insides start to rot away, their hair and feathers start to fall out, and you can start to see them losing a little bit of weight. At stage 3, the pony is completely insane, losing their ability to speak, their mouth starts to stretch, and their eyes actually sink far into their skulls. And while the mutation is different for each pony, the one constant in this stage is that their hunger demands that they hunt down and feed on other ponies. And as of now, the best thing to do when you see the infected is to just run away. In part 2, we get to see Rainbow Dash's journal, and we learn that she's keeping it because she feels like she is the reason this outbreak has started, and writing down the events may help her cope with this. But we also learn that AJ, aka Applejack, Rarity, and the Cutie Mark Crusaders, which include Scootaloo, Sweetie Belle, and Apple Bloom, are all together with Rainbow Dash hiding in the Sweet Acres barn. And all the ponies are basically trying to scrap together any food and weapons that they can find, keep the kids calm, and also avoid Rainbow. And as far as they know, they are the only unaffected people in Ponyville right now. They know for sure that Twilight and Fluttershy are already infected, but they don't know anything about Pinkie Pie at the moment. But she was one of the first ponies to actually eat the cookies, which doesn't bode well. Next, we see the stages for the frowning ponies, and it is pretty much the same, but Fluttershy makes it a bit interesting. When she reaches stage 2, she started eating small animals, and as you all know, Fluttershy is kind of like a Disney princess in a way. And what I mean by that is not only do the forest critters love her, but she can also talk to them. And that makes this extra depressing because she basically just devoured all her little critter friends. The third stage of the infection is pretty much the same as the smiling ponies, but the fourth stage is where the infection peaks. And in this stage, the pony is unrecognizable. At this point, the ponies are blind, but they do have a great sense of hearing and also a good sense of smell. They can also move very silently, and we'll learn later that they can even mimic the voices of ponies that they have taken out. When we move over to part 4 of the series, we see that the ponies' luck have finally run out, with infected Granny Smith finding their hiding place, forcing the ponies to pack up and run before she can get to them. The ponies got into a cart with AJ and Rainbow Dash pulling it, only to see that Granny Smith was kind of keeping pace with them, which is a problem because AJ and Rainbow Dash are 2 of the fastest ponies, period. So the fact that this old grandma can keep up with them tells us that this virus definitely turns ponies into more of like a rage zombie from 28 Days Later. The Last of Us would be a good example. World War Z also works. The point being that when these ponies get infected, it doesn't matter if they're old and fragile. This virus will have them moving and not shambling like the typical zombies. Now, a sad part about this scene is that Apple Bloom wants to stop and help her grandmother because she doesn't actually really understand what's happening here. But luckily, her big sister is there to remind her that Granny Smith is not their family anymore, which may be harsh, but it is the truth. And also, to put a point on it, next we see Big Macintosh jump in front of the girls, cutting off their path and forcing them to swerve and crash the cart. And during the tumble, it looks like Rainbow Dash had her wing banged up pretty badly, and while it may not be completely broken, she's definitely not going to be flying on it anytime soon. Beat up and bruised, the girls make their way to a shed in the middle of the orchard so that they could at least have a place to hide and recover. And while everybody is huddled in the shed trying to rest, we see this eyeball peeking in at them, watching them sleep. Now, part 5 kind of starts with a bang because we see that the ponies have woken up and they're starting to pack their supplies for their trip out of Ponyville, but then Big Mac attacks Rarity, and while her magic is able to fend them off for a bit, they can tell that it's about to break. And right before the magic barrier broke, we see Pinkie Pie dash in with a powerful flashlight and shines it into Big Mac's eyes, causing him to howl and run away. And I imagine since the infected ponies' eyes are weak now, bright lights are probably torture for them. I assume it would be akin to like sitting in a dark room all day and then someone suddenly just opens the curtains, but times that pain by like 10. Now with Big Mac gone, the ponies are all able to follow Pinkie Pie, and once they're finally far enough away, Rainbow tries to run over and hug her, only to be pushed away. And then we see why. Pinkie's muzzle is rainbow, showing that she is definitely infected, although she tells the other ponies that she's clean. She also has a large scar down her face, showing that she's definitely been through something. Now, after the quick reunion, she tells the ponies to follow her to Fluttershy's home, which is where she's been bunkered up since Fluttershy seems to be missing, and her house is also out in the woods, which means fewer infected should be around. One of the sad things that I noticed when we actually see Fluttershy's house is that there are a few little animals laying around, half eaten, confirming that she has been picking off her little critters. But on a happier note, Pinkie Pie is able to bandage up AJ and Rainbow, but then they have to have a hard conversation. And that is them asking Pinkie Pie if she's actually infected. And not wanting the children to hear, Pinkie gets Rainbow to go into a separate room with her. But instead of revealing if she's infected or not, Pinkie instead breaks down into tears, saying that this is all her fault. And in the next chapter, we learn that Pinkie Pie was the one to feed everyone the cookies because they wanted to play a prank on Rainbow Dash, just like in the original episode. But the difference in this AU is that the cookies actually did make Pinkie Pie sick, but she was so hell-bent on going through with this prank that she ignored the sickness and got all the other ponies to eat the cookies as well. In this next part, I found very interesting. Rainbow lies down next to Pinkie and places a wing around her, letting her know that none of this is her fault. And then Pinkie asks the question that has been on my mind the whole time, which was, what did you put in those cookies that made ponies become like this? And Rainbow responds by letting her know that she didn't make the cookies. She actually special ordered them for someone in Canterlot, which may imply that there is a potential outbreak already going on in Canterlot or is brewing. After that, the ponies hear someone outside screaming for help, and when Apple Bloom heard the pony, she decided to rush out and help them. AJ tries to stop her, but Apple Bloom pulls away and says that there's a pony out there who needs help. Our family's gone, Applejack, just like you said. I have to help any pony I can before it's too late. And she bursts out the door, heading towards the sound of the screaming pony, only to find Fluttershy, who is definitely not a normal pony anymore. And being so shocked at the trickery, Apple Bloom is stunned and just looking up at this monstrosity until we see Fluttershy take a huge bite out of her, basically cutting her in half. And I have to be honest, I was not expecting the kids to be turned or eaten in this AU. So this lets us know that this is going to get real dark real fast.
Good and tasty.
After that gruesome scene, we learn that everyone witnessed her death and were too stunned to actually do anything because they just did not expect that level of violence, or at least everyone except Sweetie Belle, who charged the creature and lit up her horn only to be devoured as well. This second death finally seemed to wake Pinkie Pie up, and she pulled out her flashlight to blind the creature and then shuffled everyone back into the protection of the cottage. And then she's immediately jumped on by Applejack. And while I understand that she's upset that she just lost her little sister, she's acting like she didn't just sit there and watch her sister get attacked as well. If she would have attacked that pony as quickly as she attacked Pinkie Pie just now, maybe the little girl would have lived. But luckily, the other ponies are able to calm her down and actually come up with a plan so no more ponies will be eaten. And we see Pinkie say that Ponyville is done for at this rate. The infected will start leaving the town and invading the rest of Equestria, meaning that they need to get to Canterlot and warn everyone ASAP. So they decide that the fastest and safest way to get to Canterlot is by taking the train. Let's just hope this doesn't turn into a train to Busan type situation. So after about 2 days, the ponies got their supplies together and started to head for the train station. And as the ponies were walking, they started to hear laughter out in the distance. But this laughter didn't sound normal, but rather broken and sinister. And then they noticed that the laughter started getting closer to them, as if something had heard them and was now moving towards them. And then we see a gray pony emerge out of the forest and started to chase them. And while it's hard to tell who this pony is, considering that they are gray, I think that this might be Derpy. And to make matters worse, after they spotted that one pony, a bunch more started to chase them as well. But luckily, they were able to make it to the train, and it seems to be in good shape, although there were some blood trails inside the cab, which is to be expected in an apocalypse. Next, we get to see just how strong these infected ponies are, with the fact that they were able to break through the thick glass of the train windows with little effort. And if given enough time, they definitely would have broken this train. But before they could actually do that, the train starts to move, and the ponies were able to safely get out of town. In the next chapter, we learn that it will take the ponies about 3 hours to make it to Canterlot, and in order to pass the time, Pinky lets the group know how she got the scars on her face. And we learn that when the outbreak first happened, Pinkie Pie actually paired up with a pony named Lyra. She fed her and gave her a safe place to rest, but that night when they went to sleep, Lyra took an axe to Pinkie Pie's face, thinking that she was going to mutate just like the other ponies did. In thinking that she had taken Pinkie out, she ran off, and Pinkie hasn't seen her since. And it seems like the infection is the only reason that she was able to survive and heal, which is a horrible realization, because this means that the infected ponies are way more durable than we initially thought, and even if you take an axe to their face, they'll still be able to heal themselves. Now, after that conversation, Scootaloo pulls back Pinkie's hair and asks her how she got the giant teeth marks on her neck. And then we see Pinkie freak out, screaming that she's not talking about that scar, scaring Scootaloo and angering the other ponies. But then we have this cute moment where Pinkie apologizes, saying, "I'm sorry, Scootaloo, that one's a sad story." And Scoot responds by saying, "Can I make it a happy one?" We then see her come up with a story of Pinkie finding a little puppy who gets a little bit too excited while they're playing, and it bites her on the neck, but then apologizes and licks the wound to try to make it better. And I think this serves as a bit of a reminder just how young Scoot is, because we all know where that bite likely came from. But her story does make Pinkie happy, and it also takes some of the tension out of the room until they spot something on the train tracks. And this pony seems to have no intentions of moving. And once we get a closer look at it, we see that this is definitely Twilight Sparkle. And I was happy to see that even though some of the ponies wanted to stop, Pinkie said, "Heck no, it's best we run that thing over rather than stopping and being eaten." And I agree 100%. What's the point of having a train if you're not going to use it to run over zombies, especially this abomination? But as the train got closer, Twilight started charging energy into her horn, and once the train was right on her, she released it, knocking the whole train off the track, reminding us just how powerful Twilight is. After this, we see her peering into the hole that she made in the train, laughing all the while. But before she could get into the cart, a loud horn sounded from the distance, causing Twilight to howl in pain. And then we show the outline of what looks like a pony, but in actuality, it's a zebra, or aka Zakara. And she screams at the other ponies to follow her while Twilight was distracted. So everyone filed out of the train cab and started to follow her into the Everfree forest. But then they heard AJ scream. And when they turned around, they saw Twilight biting down on her foot. And while Zakara tried to blow the horn again, it was not loud enough to actually chase Twilight off. So they had to use the train horn instead, which was loud enough to force her to drop AJ, allowing all of the ponies to make it to the forest. Then we get this scene of Scoot hugging Zakara's leg and telling her how happy she is to see her. We also learn that Zakara is heading to Canterlot as well, so she agreed to travel together with the other ponies. But as we can see here, AJ is starting to lag behind, and it seems like it's due to the bite that she took from Twilight. And when taking a closer look, you can see the rainbow starting to spread from the bite mark. But surprisingly, when the other ponies ask AJ if she's okay, she lies and says she's fine, keeping her leg a secret from the group. In the next chapter, we learn that Zakara was linked up with Starlight when the outbreak first happened, but the two of them ended up splitting up because Starlight wanted to find a cure, while Zakara thought it might be best to lie low. But she did tell Starlight that if she could find one of those cookies that started the virus, she might be able to use it to make a cure. But once Starlight left, Zakara never heard from her again, and she was forced to later leave her hut because the infected were closing in on her location. And while she was on the run from the infected, she learned that if you cover yourself in mud, it will make it harder for the zombies to track you down because they won't be able to get your scent. which causes this little cute scene with all the ponies jumping into the mud puddle, except for Rarity, who takes a bit more convincing, but nobody's surprised about that. After that, the group sets off for Canterlot on foot, the trip now taking 3 days instead of 3 hours because they don't have the train anymore. But before they can get very far, we see AJ collapse. In the next chapter, we get this image of the ponies trying to keep AJ upright, and seeing how sick she is, Scoot is worried that they won't make it to Canterlot together. And AJ tries to console her by saying, "Don't worry, Sugar Cube, it's just a little head cold." But as we all know, AJ is a terrible liar, so none of the ponies are really buying that. The walk through the forest got much slower after that, since AJ could barely move, and as the sun started to set, the ponies decided to make camp for the night. And even though it felt like they were being watched the whole time, they managed to get a fire going and get some sleep. But that next morning, AJ revealed that she could no longer walk. And after Jakara checked on her, she decided that AJ couldn't go on and said that she would stay here with her while the other ponies go on to Canterlot, because the other ponies still need to be warned. And while Pinky is against this idea because she feels like the two of them will just be sitting ducks out here alone in the woods, Zakara is eventually able to get her to agree to leave. But then we hear AJ whisper Rainbow's name. And surprisingly, she asks Rainbow to stay with her instead of Zakara. And as the other ponies are leaving, AJ admits that she's been keeping a secret from the others. And then she removes the blanket and reveals her body, and more specifically, how much the infection has spread. And then we get this heartbreaking interaction where Rainbow is trying to figure out a way to stop or slow the infection, but AJ stops her by saying, "I know what you need to do. You need to kill me. Please, Rainbow, it's too late for me. I can feel the virus reaching my heart, and eventually it'll reach my brain. Then I'll become one of them, and I'll kill you all. Please, 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 Rainbow. I need to die in order to save you." And not knowing what to do, Rainbow just says no. But AJ continues saying, "Rainbow, you don't understand. If you don't kill me now, I don't know what I'm going to become, and I can't keep you all safe. It's okay. I want you to do it. If you do it, then I'll be able to see my family again. I'll be able to see my sister again, my little apple bloom." After that, we see that Rainbow is still struggling, saying that she can't go through with this without her knowing. She then mumbles, "I love you," which clearly catches AJ off guard, but she simply responds by saying, "Please do this for me, for us." But Rainbow is unable to grant this last wish, and she runs off, leaving AJ to go through this terrible transformation all by herself. And I don't know about y'all, but this reminds me a lot of the first Walking Dead Telltale game, where Clementine has the option to leave Lee to turn, or she can take him out so that he doesn't become a walker. Put down in the comments, do you think Rainbow is right to leave her here to turn, or do you think she should have done the merciful thing and taken her out? In the next chapter, we get to see AJ's full transformation, and she looks like an absolute nightmare. But we also learn that she is a new kind of infected called the Bitten. And it turns out that just like with the other infected, this one has stages. And if you can amputate the bitten area early on, you can stop the spread of the infection. But this is kind of like a double-edged sword in the My Little Pony universe, because the issue here is that horses are not like people. So if you're a 3-legged horse, you're gonna have a really hard life, while a human with 1 leg can probably still get around fairly well, especially if they have a cane or something of the like. I'm not saying it's gonna be an easy life, but they'll still be able to get around. But horses, on the other hand, and my horse people will understand this, they're huge. Some of them can weigh up to a ton or more. So missing a leg would put so much strain on their other legs that it would cause like severe damage to their hooves and also mess up their blood circulation. And this is why so many ranchers kind of just put horses out of their misery if they get a broken leg or an injured leg. It may seem cruel, but in reality, it's kind of a mercy, unless the rancher is just like rich and can afford to just have the horse live like a lazy life in a way. Now, when the Bitten get to stage 2, we see that the pony starts to get pale, they lose their grasp on reality, and the only way to save them at this point is to just take them out. And if somebody doesn't give them that mercy, they move on to stage 3. And at this point, the pony loses all sanity. And we can kind of tell this just by looking at the eyes. These ponies will attack anything that is living, but the good news is that these guys are really loud and clunky while they hunt, so they are much easier to avoid, at least in stage 3. And then finally, we have the final stage, which is stage 4. And at this point, the Bitten ponies' necks have fully twisted and grown twice as long as it originally was. And while they may have been loud in stage 3, once they hit stage 4, they become deathly quiet with their steps. The only sounds that they make now are these strained groans and screams. And while these guys are really slow, it's still recommended to stay out of the forest because that is where they have the best chance of actually sneaking up on their prey. After this, we get the final chapter, and this is where we see Princess Celestia and Princess Luna in the Canterlot Castle. And Luna has noticed that Ponyville appears to be dreamless, which of course is because the dead don't dream. Later that night, Luna goes into the dream world to see if she can find any dreaming ponies, and at first, it seems like she's gonna come up empty again, but then something catches her eye. She screams out Applejack's name, and then Dream walks over to her, hoping to find some answers to all this. But then she is greeted with pure darkness and hears a groan come from the distance. And this is where she sees AJ in her new form. Then we see this scene where it's just sobs and sniffles. And while I think this is from AJ, it could also be from Princess Luna. Especially when you consider that this next image has like rainbow slime or maybe blood coming from under the door here, showing that Luna may be infected now as well. And I'll just say this, if Luna gets infected, it is wraps for everybody, because that means that people can be infected in the dream world. There will be no shot that the rest of the ponies will make it out of this alive or unaffected. Now, I predict that in the next part of the series, the other ponies are going to finally make it to Canterlot and team up with Princess Celestina to try and figure out who created those infected cookies in the first place. And once they're able to figure out what ingredients is causing this reaction, Zakara will likely be able to assist in making some kind of vaccine. They'll just have to buy her enough time and of course keep the infected ponies from eating more people. But that's just my theory for now. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this video here and go support Anxiety Monster on TikTok. I saw a lot of you asking me to cover the Dragon Ball Z horror series, so I'll start taking a look at that one next, and that may be the next video to come out. With that being said, we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Peace, peace.